to go? Let's get started and learn. Take it away.
All right, thanks, Kim. So today, what I wanted to talk a little bit about is engaging your members through your existing RiSE website, and that's with also using another tool. So really our goal for today, and really hopefully the goal of your website, is to create a user experience on your website that will keep them engaged, that keep them coming back, that provide benefit and value to them. And so the tool that we're going to be talking about is process automation that's going to help me out with that. And really it's the alert side that can be used to really direct the user through your site and help kind of give them that personalized experience as they work on your site and access it. So the purpose behind that is to have them and assist them with having a great experience, that they're not confused about, well, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. I wasn't sure where to go. So hopefully alleviating any confusion there. And then assisting your organization with gathering data to better serve those users. And so I have various clients that say, oh, we're starting a campaign where we want to collect this information because that's going to help us better serve our base. So doing both of those things kind of through this alert system is something that can kind of help drive and help kind of enhance that experience. So like I said, the tool that I'm going to talk about is process automation, and there's a couple of things with process automation. Out of the box, if you are on iMIS 20, you'll notice that you do have the option for process automation, and what it gives you are some out-of-the-box alerts and things like that. So there are those pieces out of the box. However, with that said, there's not a lot of options to modify them and add to them, and so you kind of get what you get for the alerts. Most of the alerts that I'm going to show today and the process pieces I'm going to show today are going to be ones that I created, and so I have to have licensing for Process Automation Plus. So it's a little bit different licensing. It's an extra module kind of. So just kind of keep that in mind. And when you use Process Automation or purchase Process Automation Plus, you get both the alerts that we're going to spend our time looking at, different ways to utilize those, as well as tasks. And what tasks allow you to do is you can automatically generate emails. Let's say when something happens, I want to send an email out, like, for example, I pay my dues. You want to send out a little email saying, thank you for paying, immediately after I do that. Or it can execute code. Sometimes we have jobs that are running behind the scenes, maybe to update data and things like that. So we can also use it to execute code. But like I said, we're going to focus most of our attention to the alert side of things today. We're going to use those alerts to engage the users, to kind of help them through that process and keep them informed, kind of, as things come up, or pieces that you want to make sure that they're aware of that maybe are not, as readily available, or maybe they would have had to dig into on their site, bringing those things to the forefront for them to really help them best utilize your site. Examples of that, I can alert my users for missing data. Maybe I want to collect the zip code or something like that they don't have filled out. You can also do alerts for upcoming activities, things like, our annual expo. We've just opened the registration for our annual expo. Please go ahead and sign up. And what we can also do, the thing that's really nice about alerts, is when you do something like that, say registering for an expo, what you can also do is tailor these so that if I've already registered for the expo, the alert shouldn't come up because it's kind of just extraneous. They're like, well, you don't know much about me. I already registered. And so the other piece of the alert is that it says, oh, I'm looking for some information. And, once that is no longer true, that maybe I provided it or I registered or whatever the case is, it will no longer show up. So it kind of keeps things nice and tidy. We're going to take a little bit of a look at this as we get further into it. I'm going to kind of show you a little bit more on the user interface and introduce it that way. But when we get into it, the alerts are going to be based on a query to say whether or not we should display the information. And it's going to include data that you want to display. And then we'll have conditions that determine which records qualify. And like I said, this is kind of just at a very high level, and we'll actually look at this. And then we can say, what do you want to show to the user? Do you want to show a picture? Do you want to show a URL? Things like that. And then what we do is we create little sets to put one or more alerts in, and then we display those on the content pages via an alert display iPart. So that's kind of just very high level. And these alerts we want to configure to make the most of their interaction with the organization. So now what I'm going to do, that was a lot of talking, a lot of background, is open up just a sample site. So this could be your website. And what I've done is I have a couple of users just simply set up. So perhaps if they came, they have an account, and they're going to say, I want to sign in. So we're going to say, Tucker, and I can't spell today. Excellent. So one of the first things that happens is once I log in, I can be directed to a certain page. And so when I talk about kind of this personalized piece and hopefully engaging them as members, I have these alerts show up. And both of these are kind of what the alerts look like. Like I said before, the icons, the information that's displayed, the links, those kind of things, all configurable. And so what I can say is as soon as Tucker logs in, it says, ooh, you know what? Join now. It knows that Tucker's not a member and, wants to give them more information and get them into that join process. And so that's one of the things that you could have set up as an alert. So you can tell them about things, joining the organization, an event, things like that. But you can also kind of drive them into maybe providing some more information. So I'm going to say, oh, you know what, Tucker logged in. Yeah, I maybe should update my profile. And kind of think of this, if you've used LinkedIn or those kind of pieces, maybe Facebook, that there's kind of that idea of it alerts you to say, ooh, you know what, your profile's not quite complete. You could be getting more value. So go ahead and update these fields. And that's what really this experience is about. So, oh, Tucker logs in and says, yeah, by the way, I do want to update now. Basically takes me over into my profile. And it can give me information. So I have a number of different alerts going on right now, and so it's a little bit cluttered. Clearly you'd have this tailored so it looks kind of nice and clean, and this is a very bare bones one, so Tucker doesn't have much data in, so all of his alerts are showing up. So right off the bat it says, oh, you know what, you haven't added your company information in. So you can click on the pencil to add that information in. That's one of the alerts. I also have alerts over here that says, oh, you know what, you should enter your work phone so you can always be in contact with us, which may or may not be good. And then it'll say be certain to add in a mailing address to keep up with our organization. Because as I look, oh, you know what, I don't have an address listed. I don't have a work phone listed. Those are a couple of examples. Another example might be, and I'm going to do this one first so you can kind of see what it looks like, is that I have account settings. So those were the alerts that we've looked at up to this point. Look at the data that was there and say, this is what you could do to fill it in. We can also have alerts, for example, that I come over here and say, you know what, I don't want any mail. So I'm going to check that. And I'm going to save that setting. And that actually triggers this alert to turn on. And so it says, oh, you know what, don't miss out on our mailings. Update the exclude mail field today. And so right now it's saying exclude, so it's kind of telling them, oh, you might want to go back and uncheck that. Now another piece I want to show you is, we're going to toggle between these, is if I go back to the About Me, right now it says to enter that work phone. If you recall, when we were looking at this page before, it also said that I didn't have my address information in, and I still don't, but what it noticed is that my particular alert is set up so that if I say I don't want any mail sent to me, I don't have to have an address in. And so that's all that it's doing here. It really drives based on the data, and it can be multiple data fields that are involved. And so I'm going to jump back over here to Preferences, take that back off, click on Save. And so now, when I come back over, this is turned back on, so adding in a mailing address. So then, to really get rid of these alerts or to, fill them in, I can say, oh yeah, you know what, here's a work phone number. And I'm going to save that. You'll notice now it says, oh, you just need to enter in that mailing address. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so I'm really just filling out all of this information kind of based on the alerts that are coming up. And so it really kind of helps them focus in on the pieces of information that are most important to you guys for collecting that's going to get them some sort of benefit. And so it's really just setting those up. And I now have that in. I think I may have to for this particular alert. Refresh my page. And now that alert's gone. Now it looks like it overwrote my address with the Interdyne address. That just happens to be how the data is set up and how my iMIS is set up for the address flow through. So you'll notice that now my flag is back saying, I don't have a mailing address. You say you want mail. I don't have that address. And so they kind of can turn off and on depending on what the situation warrants. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So the next piece, now you kind of have an idea of how those work. I'd like to show you a little bit about how these are set up. So I'm going to come over, and I'm going to actually drag this over for you. And so what you'll notice here is I'm actually logged into the staff site. So I'm going to come back here, just like kind of come to the main dashboard. This is the site, if you're familiar at all with using that. And so where these are found is underneath RiSE. It's this Process Automation Plus. And so, like I said, there are alerts and scheduled tasks, and really the tasks aren't as important for our purposes today, but there are alerts that you get out of the box. And so there's some of these down here. There's ones that you can put on the staff site to kind of help them. So things like low inventory, letting know about recent orders, that pricing is changing. So things you can do on your staff site to alert staff members. And then also things that you can put on your actual member-facing site or external site. So there's a few of these that are set up to kind of drive what we were looking at in the member site. So as we look at one of these, I'm going to say that let's look at this no work phone. And so a task is really made up of a number of different components. I can say whether or not the task is enabled if I don't want it to run at a certain point in time, or maybe we set it up, we're getting more hits, or people are confused by it and calling in. I can disable this. And then I just give it a name. I could give it a description. And then I choose what type it is. We're talking about alerts today, the other types of pieces that you can set up or schedule tasks. So it's an alert display. And then what I need to do is I need to say, how do I know if this should do anything? And so the data sources, when I put information here, if it's based on a query, this is an IQA query, and what it does is says, if I return any rows, any values back in this query, as long as I get something back, I should go ahead and execute this task, or show this alert, I should say. It shows the alert kind of depending then upon these conditions. And so the conditions, how I have them set up are pretty simple, simply because in my data source to say, should I run or should I display this alert, I'm going to use the same query to say, who am I going to show this alert to? And so I have the same query in both spots. I'm going to have you take a look at this because there's a couple of important pieces. So I just give the data source a name, and then I also say, oh, it's part of this query, and I can select a different query. What I wanted to show you is that for these queries, and it's especially important in the way that I'm using it today, because I want it to only show up for specific people. If I've filled in my work phone, I don't want this to show. So those people that already had it filled in, it wouldn't show for them. What I have to do is I'm using for my source in my query net contact. And then there's a special filter that says, look at the contact key, and the value you should look for is this @selected_user. And this is all in the iMIS documentation. I know I never remember what the syntax is right off the top of my head, but what it says is that this is going to show potentially if it is on a selected user's record. And so because I'm logged in as Tucker, and Tucker shows up in the query, display the alert is really what's going on. So there's a couple of things that happened. I both said people showed up in my query, and now I'm saying that actually Tucker showed up by doing this @selected_user on the contact key. I'm going to close that. So those are my data sources and how it knows if I should show or display an alert. If I go to this Alert tab, this is where I get to pick where and what I want to show in that alert. And so I first of all get to say it is a part of an alert set, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But then I have really this WYSIWYG editor where I can put in whatever kind of message that I want to put in my alert. So I can make it red if it's very important, make it bold. I can insert images. You'll notice some of them had flags on them, some had little people icons, so I can do whatever kind of image I like. And I can also create links. So for example, if you recall the update now, when I said, oh, you know what, your profile needs to be updated, that whole update now piece, that is something that you can throw in as a link, the hyperlink manager. The other nice piece about this is I can also insert data from the iMIS database. And so I can say up here that there's a data source. I can say that my data source is the same one, same query. So that way, and it should have turned this on, that the data that I'm returning back in that data source, I can do really a word merge kind of thing, a data merge into this message. So I could say, oh, you know what, I can say that, maybe I want to say their full name. Please enter our work phone so you can always be in contact with us. And it'll go ahead and put in their full name there, so you can really personalize those messages too, to kind of make them feel like, oh, they're really talking to me, not just everybody in general. So I can save that and have that set up as my alert message. So pretty slick. One of the other things that you can do is, I'm going to say close on this. And I'm going to jump back over here. And I'm on Tucker's record. So we've been making some changes here. I'm going to go back to that member home page. And I'm going to reload this. And I'm guessing it's date. And you'll notice I can still have this update my profile now. I could also tie this. It doesn't happen to be executing right now. Is to say after I've made an update, so I can look at my last updated date. If it's outside of that, show me this. So maybe you want to have an example of, you know what, you want people to see this message if they haven't changed anything in their profile in the last year. But anybody that's changed something in the last year, then, you know, don't show this to, because they've been been making changes. And so you can do things like that really based on the data in your database. I'm going to jump back then to kind of showing you a bit more of the setup. So I set up these particular tasks or alerts, and then I have what they're called our alert sets. And an alert set is just a way to kind of group together similar types of alerts. If you recall back on this page, 2 alerts are actually showing up, and I just happen to say, oh, I think they're independent alert sets, so they can, you know, have one or more in them, and I can show one or more sets on a page, or I could have put them in the same set and they would have shown up as well in the same manner. So for example, on the individual profile, I can see I have a missing company alert. And so that has a single task associated with it. Things like staff account's a better one, where you can have multiple. And you can show or choose which order you want them to display in when you have them listed here. I'm going to cancel out of that. So that's what you want to do, is you can set up an alert set. It's really the way that you get them to eventually show up. And the I part will use and look towards an alert set to show that. So after I have my alert in an alert set, my next piece would be I want to show it on a page. And so I'm going to go to page and choose to manage the content, and I have my profile pages set up over here. And so on the account page, there's an I part. It's called an alert display. And this is where I choose to have one or more alert sets displayed over here in the selected. So this one says I want to show the individual profile one when I show this page. And now it still makes sure that just because you have the alert set there, if it doesn't apply to the person or doesn't apply to the page, depending on how it's set up, it won't be displayed. And then I can also say, oh, you know what, I can hide when there aren't any alerts. And so it just wouldn't show, so they don't know anything is behind there. Maybe if you have something like upcoming things or upcoming alerts that you maybe want to have that show a placeholder for it, even when there isn't anything upcoming, so you can go that route too. click on cancel out of here. And so really then the last piece is setting that alert display up and saying which alerts you want to display on which page. So that way you can kind of drive and really enhance that experience. That's what it's really all about. I've shown you a lot of the technical details, but really the whole purpose behind this is driving it so that your users kind of have that nice experience. You're helping them, in a way, helping them help you by, possibly filling in any gaps as far as their, profile information. Say you want to target them for particular mailings or that kind of thing based on some information, and you want to make sure to collect it. This might be a way to do that, to kind of draw attention to certain fields without possibly making them required. Sometimes, the other option is to just make it required. If you go in there and save it, it's going to give them a message that they can't save if it's required. But this is a little bit gentler way to say, oh, by the way, we'd love to collect this if you'll help us out, and kind of, tailor the experience. And really, if there's certain things you do care about more than others, maybe draw attention to them as well. So that's kind of the last piece of setting it up on the page. I'm going to come back over here to my slideshow. So like we said, again, personalized experience where it can be configured to help that user make the most of their interaction. So if they only have a couple of minutes to spend, these also help drive them and say, oh, you know what, focus on this first. There's a lot of pieces out here. This is what maybe you want to take a look at first. So it's kind of a way to engage your members and really help them through the process. And I think now I'm open to questions. I know I kind of breezed through that pretty quickly. There was a lot of pieces involved, but anything I can go back to explain better.
Awesome. All right. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the question area. So let's go ahead and type in any questions that you would like to get answered. Let's see. I see my friend Julie Doggin is on the line. Hello, Julie. Great to see you there. Right now, there are not any questions in the queue. So what's a common question that you will be hearing from your clients in regards to this?
I think some of them are, I was just thinking about things that we had talked about as far as implementing with other clients, and a lot of this is hopefully driving them to say, how can we better, number one, collect data? I think I'm thinking of one client in particular that says, you know what, we really want them to make sure that they are telling us, what county they reside in, or what their interests are. That's probably one of the biggest pieces, is if you're tracking areas of interest for them. Maybe they don't know because it's on a different tab, for example. It's not really up front and center, because you can't have everything up front and center as you think about their member profile. And help them try to say, oh, you know what, you should go in, update your interests so that way you can get them more involved. Get them more involved in other things. For example, knowing maybe you have committee positions coming up and opening up. If you were collecting this information, it's a way to kind of say, you know what, we can go look at our data in the database, say, you know what, so-and-so said that they are interested in helping us out with getting new members. Maybe they should be on the membership committee. And so in a way, you're trying to help them help you, make the organization better and finding those people. And without them updating their data and telling you these things, it's hard to know, and you're kind of just guessing and cold calling and, trying to know based on, what they've done in the past. But it's maybe another way to help them out and really engage them with your organization. Say, oh, you know what, they know what's important to me because, I've helped provide it.
Good point. Good point. Excellent. So true. Saving time, making it easy for people to volunteer and find that information is key to their satisfaction and renewal. So good point. Excellent. Well, I don't see any other questions in the queue. So again, as always, Michelle, you did a great job. Thank you so much. And if